over there, but I sure really hired a mover. This is crazy. I got so much shit. This is oh, hey everybody. Well, this is embarrassing. The place is in shambles. Look, this is a new space for me. I'm still moving in. Cut me some slack, okay? I scooped this place up from an old librarian who fell down a manhole. I'll be fully moved in next month, but for now, we've got history to talk about. You know, I was looking around at all my stuff just now, and it got me thinking, stuff is a big part of life. So today, we're talking about a guy who devoted his life to stuff. In fact, a guy who may have had one of the most impressive collections of stuff in history. Everybody do the worm! And not the one you're thinking of. We're talking about Ole Worm, or Olaus Wormius, if you want to sound uptight. A Danish physician, scholar, antiquarian, and perhaps most of all, one of history's great hoarders. Before we get too deep, I want to note that I was looking up pronunciations for various Danish things and ran across this helpful video from a man named James Harbeck, who had these words of wisdom to share.
Danish is weird.
Okay, so wish me luck and apologies to our Danish viewers. Excoriate me in the comments below. Now, Ole Worm had one great claim to fame, but you know, don't we all? And don't we all live full, complicated lives outside of that one thing? Sure, I host an award-winning show and was sent back in time to be murdered and was reincarnated out of my mom's throbbing cloaca. But what you don't know is that I also love riding dogs like horses in the rain to the fair with my neighbor, John Krasinski. The point is, as the film Life of Chuck very profoundly taught us, people contain multitudes. And Ole Worm was no exception. Ole Worm was born in 1588 in the city of Aarhus, in the middle of Denmark. His childhood was, you know, whatever, I don't know, I assume he was a child and then an older child, but let's pick things up at age 13, when, in the year of 1601, he packed his bags and went for one hell of a wander. Nowadays, you can watch the most heinous content imaginable from the comfort of your couch. Hello. But in the days of yore, if you wanted to experience the fascinating, grimy, bizarre stuff the world had to offer, you had to get out there, talk to people, look at things. You know, get your little Danish fingers dirty. And that's what Ole Worm did. From age 13 onward, he bopped around Europe attending schools and universities. First some grammar school, then over to the University of Marburg to study theology. He transferred to Gießen, pivoted to medicine, and studied anatomy and botany under the physician Johann Rudolf Salzmann in Strasbourg. From there, Worm studied at medical school, toured Italy in 1609, spent time in Old Paris, and eventually returned to Denmark. By 1611, about 10 years after he'd set off on his educational odyssey, he'd written his doctoral dissertation titled The 100 Medical Controversies. And what were those controversies? Well, I looked them up. They're Danish, very Danish. A lot of Danish in there. But there was one clear takeaway from his studies and his writings, and it's that at a time when there were competing philosophies in the medical world, Worm swore allegiance to none, believing that medicine should be based on observation, experience, and evidence, and not rigid adherence to a particular school of thought. To quote the man himself, "Nothing is more disgraceful than to enslave our intellect, the dictator and ruler of all things, to the pleasure of others." Believe it or not, accepting the facts and evidence in front of your very eyes was a pretty progressive stance in the early 1600s. And even now in 2026, yeah, that's right. Oh, you think a history show ain't gonna work in some digs? Professor, I wish you would keep politics out of this. Shut the fuck up and lick my little blue butt. It tastes like cotton candy. Anyway, in 1613, after more than a decade of travels, Worm had settled back in Copenhagen, where he built a nice little career for himself. He became a professor at the University of Copenhagen and was eventually promoted to dean, but here's the real cush gig. He started making connections around town, and before long, he was the go-to physician for the noble families of the area, and eventually to the Danish royal court. Heard of him? How about this guy? Yeah. Or him. Or, and her as well. Yeah, celebrities, basically. You gotta imagine that's a pretty plum hustle if you can snag it, but also a little precarious, right? I mean, sure. Prince catches a cold, you toss some leeches on him, and suddenly the royal family owes you, a fucking yacht or something. But one faulty diagnosis, and oopsie, you've got royal blood on your hands, my good Danish doctor. Now, to be clear, Worm didn't treat royalty exclusively. In fact, he met so many folks on his travels abroad that he established a wide network of contacts across Northern Europe and beyond. Former acquaintances from places like Iceland and the Faroe Islands would write him letters asking for medical advice, and Worm would diagnose them remotely like an ancient BetterHelp. That was, I want to be clear, that was just a joke. This is not sponsored by BetterHelp. To prove that, I'll say, what could I, here, how about this? BetterHelp did 9/11. Yeah, look it up. Okay, cool. While all this was happening, the teaching, the doctoring, the royal consulting, Worm was quietly chipping away at another passion. One that would cement him in the annals of history. That he was going goblin mode on antiquities. That's right. Undoubtedly, another natural side effect of his experiences traveling around Europe, he became obsessed with ancient relics, runes, and strange objects of the natural world. And he was no slouch. He wasn't just shut up in some library reading about these things. He was out there, pounding the pavement. Around 1619, he began studying the remnants of ancient Norse monuments around Denmark and documenting the mysterious runes carved into them. He self-published manuscripts about them, hoping that people might harbor some national pride for the buried secrets of their land, but, nobody gave a shit. So he kept on keeping on with his actual careers and relegated his antiquity work to a side hustle, but that all changed in 1639 when things got, pretty horny. One day, a peasant girl in southern Denmark, who was clearly shirking her responsibilities and partaking in the joyous recreational act of digging a hole in the ground, stumbled upon something interesting, something old, something gold. And that something was none other than the golden horn of Galahus. Galahus. That's why I said things got horny. This is a good show. The magnificent horn, dating back to the 5th century, was made of sheet gold, covered in inscriptions and images, and weighed about 6 pounds. As it was a bit of a national treasure, it quickly made its way to the royal family, and it just so happened that Ole Worm was tending to the family one day when Prince Christian was said to be drinking wine out of that beautiful fucking horn. And Worm was like, "Excuse me, where'd you get that fucking horn?" And the prince was like, these are not exact quotes, but the prince was like,
"Oh, we found it in the fucking ground, man."
And so Worm absolutely is gnawing at the bars of his enclosure. He studies the horn, draws it, writes a 72-page book about it, and dedicates it to Prince Christian. And bam! International bestseller. It sells out in 1641. He publishes another book in 1643, and suddenly people cannot get enough of this fucking horn. That brings us to the Vermayanum, an impressive and growing cabinet of curiosities located in Worm's own home. Now, over the years, Worm himself had been collecting objects from his travels, exotic plants, natural specimens, odd artifacts. But achieving international acclaim for his writings about one specific weird thing, Worm's reputation as guy who loves weird things kicked into overdrive. And even more people started sending him stuff. Scholars, friends, diplomats, relatives, nephews mailed him artifacts from abroad. A bishop from Norway sent him a preserved lemming. Side note about lemmings, people at the time thought they were born out of thin air. And Worm examined the animal and was like, "Guys, no. Anyway, Worm's collection was vast and full of stuff that your average citizen could never imagine seeing in their lifetime. To give you an idea, here's a small sampling of some of the stuff you'd encounter if you visited the Vermarium. A perfumed tube, a coffee bean, owls, tea, crayfish, bees, stuffed snakes, stones, pebbles, a skeleton, pieces of wood, a chess set made of walrus tusks, teeth, coins, hog bristles, nuts, pita bread, Indian tortoises, a seahorse, Japanese paper, dead birds, potato, bones, nests, weapons, teeth. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Look at this room full of shit. Wow, what is that? Or that? Who's that the guy? The visitors were invited to not only look at all this crap, but to touch, to sniff, maybe even to taste, I don't know. It was surely a feast for the senses, because you know that room smelled funky. Lay people and scholars alike came from far and wide to check out this shed full of freak shit. The inventory continued to grow over the years, and full catalogs of the cabinet were published in 1642 and 1645, which only increased the public's fascination. Now, Ole Worm died in 1654, nobly embedding himself in Copenhagen to treat plague victims and eventually succumbing to the plague himself. Now, I didn't want to linger on it too heavily because it's depressing, but the whole plague thing was kind of a constant through his life. As author Ole Peter Grell writes, and even I can acknowledge it's pretty funny to write a book about a guy named Ole when your name is Ole. But in his book, The World of Worm, he writes,
"He was certainly familiar with the plague, having lost first his oldest daughter in the 1618 to 1620 outbreak, then his wife, his father, and his brother-in-law in the 1629 outbreak, and finally, his second wife in the 1636 to 1638 epidemic. Nowhere in his correspondence is there any indication, incidentally, that familiarity lessened the dread of the disease."
Tough breaks all around, obviously, but you gotta hand it to the guy for sticking in the trenches, even when he knew how nasty and deadly those plagues could be. Though he perished, Worm's legacy remained, as he had his body taxidermied and placed alongside all his relics. And I'm just fucking with you, he didn't do that. But he did die, obviously, of the plague. Takeaway. Well, how about 3 cheers for endless curiosity? Yeah, how about that? Worm wondered about the world, and then he went places. He talked to people, he sought strange objects, and when something weird appeared, be it a golden horn of Galahus or a sky-falling lemming, he studied it. So, I guess, get out there, look at things, pick them up, turn them over, ask questions. Don't just sit at home watching YouTube, but please do that. Please, I beg of you, do it for your little professor. That does it for this month's History Contingency Tape. As always, watch out for yourself, learn or perish, etc., etc. And we'll see you next month. Got a call. Hello?
Connie, it's a strange producer, Shane Madej.
Oh, hey, what's up, man?
Your office is looking a little shabby.
Yeah, I know. I haven't really moved in yet. Also, by the way, I'm kind of on a shoestring budget here. Can we get some sponsors?
That's awful rich, Connie, as I'm reviewing the transcripts from today's episode and I'm seeing the words, "BetterHelp did 9/11."
We'll see you next month, everybody.